Welcome everyone to the Fractional Operator. I'm your host, Mike Nelson from Hourglass SaaS. Hourglass software. One of the things about Hourglass when we were building it is that a lot of software on the market, and I would go as far as to say most software on the market, forces you to adhere the way that their software works. So it's like you have to change your processes to use their software. For Hourglass, we actually made it pretty customizable. So instead of you changing your business for the software, you can actually change the software for your business. Give us a try. Check us out at hourglasssaas.com. And without further ado, to our guest, Tim Judson. How are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for letting me come on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Excited to uh talk and allow our listeners to hear about what you do. It was interesting in our conversation. The term CCO was not one I had actually heard of. But then I looked it up and it is a thing, right? So
It is a thing, not a well known thing. I guess you're pretty actually new to the C-suite area.
yeah.
Um, and actually, I've kind of coined myself as a client success leader, just so I don't, step. Just I work with some CCOs, and I
Yeah.
don't want you in their territory. So, but as a leader, I'm kind of coming in and showing them that, hey, I'm here to help out. I'm here to come in as a specialist to help out in areas. Um,
Okay.
and work with that.
So
But yeah, I was actually thinking, interesting you said that because my introduction to it was with a CEO, and we were talking about a consulting project, and he's like, "Man, you know what you're talking about? You ever thought about becoming a fractional?" And hadn't heard the word before, so I'm sitting here on my computer going, "What in the world is a fractional?" I'm going, "Yes. What's your thoughts on that?" So
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out that it's just a fancy word for coming in and helping out part time.
So yeah, and that's yeah. We I think Bill Tanzi and I discussed it when he was on the show, and maybe Todd Bailey as well. The the fractional is like the newer term for us folks that are working for multiple companies and maybe doing it part time or doing it as independent contractors. What we used to call the outsourced, right? It used to be the
Yeah.
outsourced CFO or CMO, and now it's fractional. And fractional is a lot cooler, to be honest with you. So
Actually, it's funny because I explained it to my wife that way. I'm like, "Well, it's the cool term, the cool kids, coming in and helping out."
that's right. So do me a favor, real quick, just because we did mention it. The term CCO. Can you kind of give a little definition, and then we'll move into actually how you work with companies and what you do, and how you work with CCOs.
Yeah, so, of course, it's many things to every group. You ask 10 people what it is, and you get 15 different answers. But really what it comes down to is it's that post-sale, group that's really handling the client. I mean, the real intention of it is we're coming in, and we're the voice of the client back into the organization. Um, but what also is to the organization is that connection point, and what it should be too is to that executive level. Now, there's a couple
Mhm.
different flavors of it. Mine's kind of a strategic client success,
Mhm.
whereas you have kind of a normal one, which is more I say in the SaaS world because it kind of came from that area because you had sales team, you had a service team, but no one really helping that customer with the software. So it kind of pushed from that. And then now it's kind of grown outside of SaaS into what I call a strategic, which is where I'm at, which is really getting with that economic buyer.
Mhm.
And it's understanding their needs. Because the biggest thing with this is the fact of if you want retention, you have to know what the client's value is. You have to know what their outcomes are, and you have to know how they're measuring it. That's what a lot of people don't do. They kind of understand objectives and stuff like that, but they really don't understand how are they measuring it. How is that leader, and I work a lot with enterprise. We'll kind of talk about
Mhm.
that a little bit, but I work with enterprise and they're coming back and they have to go to their board and their leadership and say, "Hey, this is what I spent and this is what we got from it."
Mhm.
So you really have to sit down and have that conversation with them. And sales really doesn't do that because once they sell them, they're off on somewhere else. Account management, they do some of it, but really what happens is they're just trying to get to that next sale. So they're going to fix things to get to that next piece. So this really kind of focuses on that customer, understanding what their needs are, what that value is, what those outcomes have to be, what those measures are, and then bring that back to the organization and make sure they deliver that.
So is CCO Chief Client Officer, Chief Customer Officer, maybe a little bit of both? Chief.
Yeah, on your SaaS side, it's gonna be kind of a chief customer officer. On the the non-SaaS is doing kind of more of a chief client officer.
Hmm.
The role is also adjusted now to being everything on the post-sale side. So you do have the customer success team. You'll have an implementation team. You'll go into, someone can be even over the service team. If
Hmm.
the operations is the CCO wants like get rid of this part of the operations. It comes into that area and it comes and falls under them, so they can actually take that piece too. If you're getting up to like a C-suite in a large organization.
Hmm. What what kind of problems do you see, like, with folks that maybe don't have a CCO and they definitely need one? What are some of the signs or symptoms or problems that crop up because they don't have this in place?
Yeah, that a big thing with that is again that focus on that client. And what happens is you kind of get really what it comes down to is that retention piece.
Mhm.
It really starts impacting that because you have to have someone that's focusing on that. And what a CCO can also do is, as you're working with it, you're understanding what the ICP is. Really what is the ideal client profile, and what should you be going after, and helping sales define what that is. So you're getting groups that are coming in at like what we call paying for churn.
Mhm.
You're not pushing that. Also coming in and looking at your market. The fastest way to grow and the most profitable way to grow is with your current client base. So a CCO should be coming in and looking at that and saying, all right, we're sitting down and having these conversations with our executive buyers, the ones who had the
Mhm.
money, that know where the company's going to, and they want to go here. So how do we develop a product that works for them, with that? First of all, you already have a defined market. You have someone who already says they have a need, and now you're going to develop something that's going to actually fill that need. And so you're going to come into that instead of going out and saying, "Hey, let's break into this whole new market, which we don't know anybody, nobody knows us, and we're going to bring this great product." No, let's go into where our clients already are at and what their needs are. Develop
Mhm.
an associated product that would go with that. Have them already lined up. I mean, it's the team should already be lining those groups up and saying, "Hey, when we get this, is this the price point and what you're going to be working at and looking at be able to do, and where is those budget dollars going to be spent, and will you spend money on this?" And when you get that
Mhm.
all put together, then you can go and jump into that market. You're already profitable because they already know you. They're not going to be kind of pushing you down like they do with new sales.
Mhm.
You already have the agreement that this is a need for them and you're moving that forward, and then you can open that market up, and then give it to the marketing team to go and say, okay, now push that out into the rest of the stratosphere in order to be able to get more clients in that realm, and that actually helps you develop that at a profitable way.
That's interesting. So you're not just involved in, let's say, the retention side, but you're also getting into the new market development as far as identifying other, let's call them verticals that are adjacent. Is adjacent the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Contiguous with services like serve other things that you could easily sell your current client base without having to reinvent your company, so to speak.
Exactly. I mean, we touch everything. I mean, think about it. Everything that the client needs to deal with, we
Mhm.
deal with on that. So, I mean, we can just run down the litany. I mean, we work with finance,
Mhm.
so working with the CFO. Okay, how are we going to make sure that we're getting payments for everything? I mean, I came into one group and they had what was it? It was about 17% of the clients were not paying their bills. I mean, we're past 120. Um, on that. So, but what I found out was that it was a billing issue. The group was actually doing billing with a spreadsheet. I know you don't like spreadsheets, and
No, sir, it does not like spreadsheets.
so literally did not have an automated process. And this is a $130 million company.
Oh my
And
god.
they're processing bills, by hand, essentially by hand with an Excel spreadsheet.
Mhm.
So clients weren't getting their bill. They're arguing about their bills. They're having problems with their bills. They couldn't understand their bills. So I mean, I came in there to it was a customer satisfaction issue. So we wanted to drive that and get those bills paid on a time basis. So we actually worked with the team to actually get a automated system in there so that we could actually put out a professional looking bill and get it put out on time and understandable, and have the customer start paying on it. So
Mhm.
working there, I mean, we work with product on how to bring things in that the customer wants, because we're sitting with them, talking about where they want to go, what they need to have, and driving that forward with product. I'm always hand in hand with sales. That is a key group for me. I mean, my best friend is a CRO, and I want them to be, have I be their best friend also.
Yeah.
Um, because it's really hard in my group. You're getting people coming in from, either they were in sales like me, my background, I mean, started in sales, but, kind of got rid of done with that and wanted to go do something else.
Mhm.
So you're moving to that realm. And also we get a lot of people from service that come into the organization this way. So come into the CS team. Um, so we're not really always the greatest closers, but we are great bird dogs.
Mm.
And, we can get in there, and especially if you're talking like my groups that work with large enterprises. So I work with, hospital systems. So, not just your local hospital, but who is with that entire hospital system, the 18, 19, maybe 50 hospitals that they deal with. We're
Mhm.
working at the corporate level to say, all right, well, it works here. Let's start bringing it into these other organizations. And you're having that conversation of where you need to take that to. So we can find that out and do what we call CSQLs, which is a qualified lead. So I kind of look at it as the fact that we're kind of the play center. We're
Mhm.
catching the ball, we're putting it down, we're spinning it, and have it just right so that the sales team can kick it through the uprights. And it's a great win-win for us because we figure it out, we get it. My team gets bonused off of that, and then the
Mhm.
sales team gets it, and they get commissioned off of that. The CFO's happy because we're not double dipping on payments, um, and we can really get in and have those conversations that sales team can't have because you go into a salesperson, they're like, "Okay, what you trying to sell me?" I'm coming in to say, "Hey, how can I help you? What do you
Mhm.
need to have next? What's happening next quarter, next year? What do you need to do to elevate yourself to that next level, and how can we bring that to you?"
That's a kind of an interesting segue with into where I wanted to go next, which is talking about how you work with your clients and kind of your business model a little bit. I'm always curious to hear how people are doing the fractional role with other companies. Now, and you just mentioned something about commissions. So do you have a structure in place so that you actually get paid if what you're doing is working for the company?
Oh yeah, that's part of. Now what I do is I've worked this with all my sales teams, as we put things together.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I have my team bonused off of. Now my team, customer success side, is works off a bonus. So we have a little bit higher salaries and a little bit extra or not so high of the extra pay, whereas a sales team, they have low salaries and very high commissions.
Hmm.
Uh, so what I do is I work it off a bonus, and we structured off of. I mean, one of the highest things that I have bonused is, again, that understanding of the customer value, outcomes, and measures. I mean, you
Hmm.
have to have that. I want that in my data so I know exactly what's going on, because I'm going to be using that again, driving markets and pushing that forward.
Hmm.
Um, and then they have it off of, there are customer satisfaction. I mean, satisfaction is it was always a key thing, but it's really not, because happy customers leave all the time. For
Right.
customers that are getting value, I mean, you can't be a jerk, but you can you can have a lot of bad things happen. And if you're giving them value, and especially if you're on you're on the revenue side and you're generating revenue,
Hmm.
you can do a lot of things when you're giving them value and driving revenue.
Yeah.
Not that you want to, and that's not the way you do business, but you do have a lot more leeway when you're doing that. So, because that first part is understanding that customer value piece and driving that. And then of course there's other metrics that we have to make sure that we're doing the things for the
Hmm.
client. But the interesting thing is a lot of people report that back to the client. Oh, look at this. We have, we had the lowest amount of tickets this month. You have the highest satisfaction. Your NPS is here. And customer kind of looks at you like, okay, great. I expect that. That's what I'm paying for. What did you do for me to lower my costs, increase my revenue, or drive business into my other clients? And
Hmm.
that's the conversation that you need to have. And so we drive off of that, but make sure that we're doing everything, that things are working. A lot of times CS takes on the role of a customer service, but I really push my team not to do that. No, use that service team, have them do the fixes.
Hmm.
Um, make sure that they're coming in and holding up that end so that you're having the higher level conversations with the client. And then, we bring them in, we bring in your top clients, and you have conversations with them about where they're going so that you can start driving the models towards that. So you're driving not only internally looking at where you can come in and get business, but also where you can grow that business and
Mhm.
what new solutions you can bring in.
So when you are working with organizations, I know that you said primarily enterprise level size companies. What does the process look like for you to come in? Because to me, like that onboarding is sometimes some of the maybe clunkiest, or maybe just like, because you have to go in, you have to learn the organization, you have to get familiar with who they are and what they do and how they do things before you can even start to make recommendations on things. What does the process look like for you to you have a new client, you're bringing them on and you're engaging with them, and then you're really getting into the rolling up the sleeves, so to speak, and getting work done?
Yeah. Yeah. So in that, I mean, even for the customer themselves, I mean, onboarding is key. I mean, I always say that the renewal starts at onboard.
Hmm.
Because if you don't onboard well, you're pushing a rock up the hill the whole time with them. And there's, even when things are okay, they don't like it because they've had that bad experience. So you definitely want to have that good onboarding, bringing them on smoothly.
Hmm.
Um, One thing that I have to watch out for, and that I work with it, especially on myself, is making sure that I'm not jumping to conclusions because I've done this so many times. I pretty much know what the problem's going to be and how to solve it. Now,
Hmm.
how we do it in that organization is always different. But, coming in and, having customer issues and having retention issues or having expansion issues, I usually see the same things over and over and over again. But
Hmm.
I kind of have to hold myself back and be like, okay, let's hear what they're doing, see what they've done, understand what they're going on. So, really what my process is after we've kind of talked about it and had an initial conversation, does this make sense? Um, we really want to start moving forward. And we kind of have a brief 30-day, what I call like, again, value and outcomes. It's like a value and outcomes definition. Because we're going to come in and we're going to ID the problem. Because a lot of times the customer will say, I got this. But it's like you going to the doctor. Oh, doc, I got
Hmm.
this. He's like, yeah, that's a symptom. You have the sniffles. We have what is causing that? It's kind of the same thing here. We have to ID what the real problem is and not just looking at the symptoms. So we
Hmm.
really understand what that is. Looking at what that value is. Okay, what this is, now we have this defined as what it is. Are we going to get value from that? And then what do you want to see happen from this? Are we looking at just, we want to just have, the retention piece? I mean, I came in with one group and they had, um, they already had about 4 clients that had already left and left the company. They had about what do we have? We had about 9 left that were on renewals.
Hmm.
And and I had to come in and understand why that was. Why were the other one dropping off? What can we do to these? How do we save those and bring those on? So, it's coming in and understand that. And what does that outcome? Well, we want to have all 9. Well, luckily we got all 9, but with a lot of work and a lot of drive and a lot of change management that we had to do to make sure that we were taking care of the clients. So understand those outcomes. And then again, like I'm saying, we look for with the client is what are those measures? How am I going to do that? What are we going to measure? How am I going to measure my ROI and what I'm going to bring back to you? We kind of do that. Now bring forward the state, what our state of work going to be. And then, we kind of make a decision. Are we going to move forward from there?
Hmm.
Does that make sense to move forward? Am I going to get you the ROI that you want to have? Are these things that, I mean, I can come in sometimes and be like, you know what, you guys can sell this yourselves. Um, do this, and this, and you'll have this taken care of. And
Hmm.
there's other times there's like, no, you really need to help here. This makes sense for us to move forward because I don't want to do a job for someone that is not going to really produce for them because
Yeah.
as we all want to have that referral coming back, and you live on that. So especially mine because mine's kind of a rotation.
Hmm.
I get a client, we solve it, and they move on or they bring. Usually a lot of times what happens is when I'm done, they're bringing someone on to take it forward and move it, going forward and then maintain that going on. But there's always other things that I can fix for them. So I want to make sure that it's good, it's moving forward, and they'll bring me back for other projects.
Yeah, it's
And
really working yourself out of a job sometimes is kind of the objective, right?
mine specifically is a work myself out of job
Mhm.
because one, I love to build versus maintain. So
Yeah.
even in my own personality, I don't want to sit there and slug through maintenance all the time. I like to
Yeah.
go in and figure out what's going on, what's broken. I mean, I actually have a Christmas tree with my ornaments, Mr. Fix It. I mean,
Mhm.
it's part of my DNA, I guess. Um, but then also when we do that, we move forward. We're actually doing monthly recaps with that engagement. So
Mm.
where we're at, where we're at in solving it, and we're constantly moving that forward. So I'm constantly always earning that next step and moving through the process. We may look at, hey, this is a 7-month project. This is a 10-month project. This is 16 months to get this done.
Mhm.
Uh, but we're always moving that forward and having that check piece and moving that forward. So we make sure that everything's engaged. And also for me to help get to them and say, hey, I'm not getting this. We need to be, we need some more push on this to make this move forward. Because you get into an organization, you always have to deal with those organization issues,
Mhm.
and what they're dealing with also on the inside.
It's interesting because, as you were talking, it was making me think about how you identify the problem. And in some cases, it's not a huge problem. And you just kind of give them a quick, like, hey, like you can solve this with if you just do A, B, and C. And it reminds me of what we call internally the gap conversation. It's
Hmm.
identifying where they are and where they want to be. And if there's a huge gap, then obviously there's value in bringing us in to help them, cross that gap. But sometimes it's just a real small gap. And it's like, hey, like you can just do these two things and you're good to go. You don't need to hire us to do that. But what it also sounded like though is that you spend a lot of time quantifying that gap so that you can really see the difference in change as you go through your timeline. Is that fair?
Yeah. Because a lot of times I'm coming in where the company is really transitioning. They're
Mhm.
they're getting away from that, um, that early adopter stage, that startup stage, and they're moving into that early, what I call early mid market. You know, they're probably crossing somewhere in the, I mean, I target groups that are anywhere from 8 million to 80 million
Mhm.
uh, in revenue. I've done some that, like the one that's 130. I mean, so I've done some that are larger, but they really didn't have a team that was placed in there. We were kind of starting up that team to take care of that. Um, but really, my sweet spot is around there, and they're moving to this. You know, when you start out and you're a startup, you're working with people, you're bringing groups in, they know you, there's your stickiness to it. Some, they're willing to put up with things because they know what's new, but they want to be the
Mhm.
first to market, having it so they can, advertise themselves as pushing it forward. So there's a lot that they'll do that. But as you transition and move to that early adopter stage, you're starting to get people now that say, hey, I have to have results. I have to go back to my board and say, I spent this money, this is what we got for it. So you're starting to have that shift, and the organization. A lot of times I come in, they haven't, they're seeing that shift in fact of they're not having retention anymore.
Mhm.
But they really don't understand why. I mean, it's like, why? Everyone loves us. I'm like, well, yes, the early adopters loved you, but now you have to have results and you have to know what those results are. So we're kind of pushing towards that, and we're driving, that business with them. So we're really trying to push towards that. So it's coming in and then defining what those issues are. So what is it that we're not getting? Again, it's usually the fact that we're not at the executive level. A lot of times I come in, they're working at what I call the management director level. And,
Mhm.
it's the day-to-day things, which again, you need to take care of, but you need to be driving your service team to be taking care of that. This team really comes into that mid organization and go into their executive team and say, okay, where are you going to? What does that
Mhm.
need to look like? And then come back to the organization and say, okay, this is what we need to have. This is what we need to drive. And that's usually where that fit difference is, because I knew it before, because I knew the company really closely because they already had engagement with it. But now they're having these new buyers that are looking for results and they're not giving it to them.
Hmm. Do you I'm curious about how you find your clients. Do you typically do you get brought in by other fractionals? Do you ever work with other fractionals on jobs, or is a lot of it, referrals and client-based word of mouth stuff?
That's just funny. I'm trying to transition where I'm getting things right now. I mean, right now it's been, pretty much the old school sales fest. I'm going out, it's email marketing, it's cold calling, and getting and understanding their market and going and grab that. I'm kind of in an area where like I said, I work with groups that work with large corporations.
Mhm.
I have a hospital system background. I have a health payer background. I work with a lot with distribution companies, and also have it's strange. I don't know even how this even happened, but I work a lot with law firms, or groups that work with law firms. I'm not sure how that fit into everything else, but it just came from the client base that I was working with.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I am trying to actually work because I want to get more of an, I mean, because once I never stop because I have that piece built into my time framework to always be doing it. Because one thing you learn when you're early on in sales is you can never stop prospecting. You always, if you stop, then you're going to have dry periods.
Yeah.
Uh, but I like to fill that in with other things. So I'm actually trying to move into, now of course we do have, networking, but you're always waiting for that to happen.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen when you need it to. When you have that third customer that says, "Okay, we're done, we're ready to move on,"
Yep.
and you need to fill that slot. So, I try to do that a little bit more marketing to draw that.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, I'm also trying to work on getting more speaking engagements because that always drives new business. Also, I love doing that. Did that early on with consulting, and getting that SME out there
Yeah.
always helps out. So I'm looking to try to move towards that, so I don't have to push so hard to draw business, but have it come a little bit more than make it a positive impact. Always having to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that roller coaster of I've got clients, I've got no clients, right? Is like I think the bane of the fractional operator. It's like, especially for, those of us that are either solo operators or with small teams, it's like you have no clients, so you push, 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 but then you hit capacity and you have no time for sales and marketing. So, you're taking care of your clients for a month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever your cycle is. But then all of a sudden that roller coaster starts going onto the down slant, and you're like, oh shit, we're going downhill. I gotta get back out there. And it really is a hard thing. We always talk about, like, when you close a deal, like, the instinct is to, like, okay, I got a couple clients coming in, I can ease back on prospecting. But really it's the opposite, right? Like, if you close a couple deals, you got to double your efforts on prospecting, because you're probably hitting the top of that hill from your sales and marketing standpoint, and you're about to go down. So, um, I'm curious about how you deal with that typically in your operation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I work that into my schedule.
Yeah.
So, I work with 2 to 3 clients at a time,
Mhm.
and then my 4th client is me. So I actually block out
I
that
like that.
time. So even if I'm at 3 clients, I'm still doing the I'm still making calls, I'm still doing email.
Mhm.
I'm still trying to get on things like this and, increase my reach.
Yeah.
Um, I wish I was a little better at LinkedIn, but it drives me nuts. Um, and the content just seems to have, at least my feeling, it just hasn't improved. It seems a little bit more generated at this time.
Yeah.
But I want someone who's really given their opinion. Um,
I gotta be honest, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I Sometimes I really just don't see the value in the amount of time it takes for audience development and network development. But at the same time, it's like, you see a lot of people and they're clearly putting the time in and they do very, very well with it. But then it's like, I mean, for me, I just don't enjoy being on social media. So, like, it's the amount of time and effort I have to spend to get that train moving, so to speak. Right. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have a team that does most of our posting for us. I obviously, through podcasts and other things, I'm doing the content creation, but this is the part I love and enjoy. I love talking to people like you and learning about you and your business. And I every single episode, I learn something that I'm like, oh, like I like with what you just said. Like, my fourth client is me. Like, I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's a smart way to look at that. Uh,
Yeah. So to help your other people, your other fractionals out there is,
yeah.
you have to make that time. Whatever it is that you're doing, whether like for me, it's right now it's email, cold calling.
Mhm.
I'm trying to grow it in some other areas of doing more marketing, just get, some kind of a snowball rolling. But you have to put that time in and do it. And this comes from old school sales that I was in. We did it all back in that day. We didn't have
Mhm.
BDRs and other avenues. So you had to do everything. So you always had to have that. Well, you would be feast and famine if you didn't do
Mhm.
it. So it kind of got ingrained into you that, hey, you always are doing this. You're always having, and really, especially when I'm at 3 clients, I don't have to drive it hard because I know what my metrics are in
Mhm.
order to, number of emails to number of calls to number of clients I get. So I actually can back it up a little bit because if I'm into, 3 or 4 12-month projects, I don't need someone tomorrow, but I need
Mhm.
them 12 months from now. So, I'm not going to send out 40 emails a day and make 20 calls a day. I might back that down to, 10, 15 emails and try and do, 5 or 6 calls there. And it's going to be less. It's going to be more of a analysis. Hey, what's going on with you? Where are you at? Let's talk 6 months from now and see where you're at again.
Mhm.
Uh, Conversations. So you don't have to push as hard, but you do have that funnel filled so that when you're knowing you're getting to that last, just like with customer success, when your renewals are.
Yeah.
So you need to target that renewal, but you can't wait until the day before to start targeting that renewal. So if I know I'm coming up 3 months, 2 months from a change, I'm going to start pushing some of those funnels a little bit faster instead
Mhm.
of driving them more. But again, the key is, especially for your group, is understanding you got to put that time in every day. A little bit done every day is a lot more than, taking 2 months to do something or 2 weeks to do something and get results.
Yeah. Yeah, cumulative activity over time, right?
Yep.
What, now you mentioned cold calls, and we always when I was, in corporate training, we used to have the joke that there's only 2 people that like cold calls, and those 2 people are sales managers and people that don't make them. Uh, but you're
Yeah.
still but sales calls are still or cold calls are still an active part of your prospecting strategy, and I know that there's gonna be people that hear this that are like, "Ah, cold calls don't work," and da da da. What can you tell me about your or tell us about your cold calling strategy?
Yeah. And, I call it that just because, and having done it for so many years, that's be the term we use. And mine is more in the sense of it's conversations about their problems.
Mhm.
That's really what it comes down to. When I'm picking up, I'm in, you're going to make 20, 30 dials and you're going to talk to one person.
Yeah.
It's just the name of the game. It's just you have to do it. It's the same thing with your emails. You're going to send out 60 emails. You may get one, that answers you back. So
Mhm.
it is a rule of numbers. And you got to have to just be used to that. But the thing is, when you do actually get that conversation, it's not a, you know, dump your product onto them, tell them all the things. It's a conversation of what's happening with you right now.
Mhm.
I'll look at it and I'll go through it. I have some AI tools that will bring me information in, um, so I know something about that client before I get there.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm going to pull something out. It could be they're having tremendous growth, and you're thinking, well, Tim, they're having tremendous growth. Why do we worry about retention? Well, because that's
Mhm.
going to hit them 6 to 12 months from now. And here's a scenario: you're growing like crazy. Let's pick a $10 million company. You got 100 people, maybe. Let's go with some even numbers here. Now all of a sudden you just doubled. You had this great bang. You just doubled. You went from, let's say, 50 to 100 clients, but you don't have the infrastructure to handle that. And like we
Mhm.
talked about, if you don't onboard them right, you're pushing a rock up the hill the rest of the times. Well, guess what happens? You're not onboarding them. You're starting to have problems. You're starting to give more focus to that. So now the clients that you had before, you're not focusing it on because you're trying to get the new ones and keep them going so you can keep your board happy because they just saw this big number come in and you got to
Mhm.
make sure you hang on to it. And guess what happens? Things start slipping, things start missing, people start getting upset about what's going on. You're not driving and pushing that value. So all of a
Mhm.
sudden, 6, 9, 12 months later, you're getting all these these clients that are just canceling on you, and you don't understand what's going on. But if you're understand that ahead of time, again, you have someone in who understands, hey, this is what this is what happens. This is what's going to go on. This is what we need to do while we're building up the team. Because again, what happens that snowball is your clients leaving are going up, but you're adding more people. So all of a sudden you get to the end of this thing and you have, you've added 25 people, but now all of a sudden you have fewer customers because you had so many leaves. So you have that mismatch of what's going on. So then you go through that chain of, okay, we have to get rid of some people because we don't have the clients that we thought we are going to have. But you start matching towards that. So you start driving that again, making sure those inputs are going in. You're having the clients come in and they're having a good experience with that. Make sure you're understanding what that value and what those objectives are, and you're having those conversations and you're moving those clients forward while you're actually getting the new team up and running and understanding it. So again, that's the thing of knowing what happened before it happens, because you've dealt with it so many times. So I'll hear that. I'll hear someone talking about that. I'm like, yep, I know exactly where you're going to go to. You're starting to have retention problems because you're not actually driving the whole business for all the new clients. So we start having that conversation. So I'll start talking to them and saying, okay, hey, I see you just grew, your market's growing 20%, but you guys grew 40% or 60%. How are you handling that? What are you doing to make sure that those clients are coming on well? And a lot of them haven't thought about that. They're like, I haven't thought about that. What do you mean? I'm like, well, let me give you the example of 3 or 4 accounts that I've just worked with that had that problem. And they're like, wow, I didn't think about that. What do we do to solve that? Well, here's what we do next.
So in some ways, it sounds like you spend a lot of your time with your clients identifying trends, right? Looking inside the business, looking at what's happening, identifying trends. So I have a question for you about trends, specifically for fractionals, though. So obviously, the last 5 years, we have seen an absolute boom in the number of fractionals coming into the marketplace and becoming fractionals. The What do you see that as a continued, like, is there so much value in the fractional operator for all size businesses, whether they're small, mid-size, enterprise companies? Like, do you see that trend continuing?
Um, Definitely in what I would say that early mid market area. I think is it's going to be a huge drive. I think um I think that I know you talked to everyone about COVID. I don't know how you can get through a conversation these days anymore without talking.
Without mentioning it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it had such a big shift. In fact, it's kind of funny because before COVID, I was actually trying to push, because I was trying to reduce our costs in our organizations and for my team and stuff like that. And there's so many conversations you have like this with someone. I mean, there's days that you have to be in front of them. Their hair is on fire, everything's hitting the fan, and you have to sit in front of them and make it happen. But there are so many other conversations that you can have like this that are real quick. You can get that executive on the line real quick, have that conversation, find out what they're doing, let them know what you're moving forward. But having that visual just helps out with it versus being on the phone.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was trying to push that, back, 2018, 2019-ish, to do that more, and also just to reduce costs, because we were jumping on planes all the time, going, everywhere, just to, be in front of the client. Yeah, it was hard to get this, but today, I mean, people will actually go, no, just let's jump on a Zoom call real quick and have a discussion. They don't even want you in the office anymore a lot of times.
Yeah.
You actually almost have to fight to get in with them now, because they're like, well, I know if I jump on this, it's gonna be a 15-minute conversation. Whereas, if you're coming in, I'm gonna need to spend some more time with you because you put the expense into coming here.
Yeah, can't bring you in
So,
for a 15-minute meeting if you flew there, right?
yeah. So I think that helped out the market, with that conversation. That's helped out the market now, because now people are used to this. And, I don't have to have, I'm out of Atlanta, I don't have to have customers right here. In fact, I have, I market here, I market Nashville, I market Charlotte. I want to stay kind of in the Southeast because I like being in that area and not have to jump on a plane all the time to go see someone. But, I have some up in the Midwest, and a couple out Texas way,
Yeah.
so, but this makes it so much easier, and people are used to this now. They're like, I don't have to have you in the office. And I think that shift probably is why you're seeing that boom happening right now,
Mhm.
because that's what's happening. People are used to this. This is a normal now versus an abnormal.
Yeah.
And even though we
Yeah,
do
so
have some more drive to office, but I think that smaller area going up to larger areas, I I think it becomes more project work than actually fractional work. I think
okay.
you're getting more towards a consulting, because I still have a lot of consulting that goes on in that area, but it's really not a fractional where you're coming in and taking on the role and doing
Mhm.
it, because they have the people for it. And then if they don't, they can hire someone to do it.
Yeah.
But like I say in the CCO area, there's a lot of times where they're just like, I can't get to it. Or especially in that mid area, that 100 to, let's say, 250
Mhm.
range, maybe 300, where the the role is a VP, and you're VP of customer success, but you're still so much in the weeds with what's going on. You're not doing the marketing piece. You're not doing the expansion piece.
Mhm.
I mean, you're trying to keep things rolling in there. Now that is where you can come in as a fractional and do that role of, hey, let me work on your expansion. Let me work on that market piece. Let me work
Mm.
on, you know, I've been come in and groups that are having a hard time with retention, and they don't even have a dashboard for at risk.
Mhm.
Well, let's build that up. Let's put that in. But then you also have to train a team. Let's train a team on what that means. Let's have them look at how you work with that. How do you drive that customer? How do you talk them off the ledge? A lot of them really haven't had that experience. So you're coming in and providing that extra reach for the CCO so that they can, get in and start working more of the strategic pieces also.
And when you said 100 to 300, are you talking about employee count?
I'm sorry, 100 to 300 million.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry. We usually talk in revenue. I'm so used to talking revenue.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to that employee piece, but yeah, it's really that 300 to 300 million revenue. And once you get to 500, it I find it get very hard, and that just might be because of the customer success side, because it's so
Mhm.
much easier for them to just bring someone on, and do it.
Yeah. It's funny, because we are a small business. We work with primarily small business owners. Most of our clients are doing, sub $2 million in revenue. So I hear 300 million and they can't get time to it. I'm like, they have so much money. Like, we're doing so much with so little here on the small business side of things. It's just always interesting to hear that perspective from larger business. So it sounds to me like they're dealing with the same problems that we are dealing with, but just at a much larger scale. But still the same set of problems. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's the same side. I mean, like I come from a little bit larger, and now I'm moving down into the smaller areas. And it's just a size problem. I mean,
Mhm.
you're going in from working with 1,000 now, like I said, I'm not really on the SaaS side, because a SaaS company could easily have 1,000 customers, but it's 1,000 individual users.
Yep.
Whereas my piece is I'm working with enterprises. So you're gonna have 100, maybe 400 enterprises that you're working with. But inside an enterprise, like I talk about hospital systems. You could have I had hospital systems that had 40 hospitals nationwide.
Yep.
Some had 10, some had were two, you know, but you're working with that over the entire enterprise, because when you sell something, you're always selling a small piece of it. And that piece is the same, whether you're $1 million group or you're a $100 million group. You're going out there and you're trying to get that sale as fast as possible, and driving that. And that's why I say this team comes in and then pushes that further. So you sold something to one hospital or maybe two. Okay. Well, they're a 50 hospital system. All right.
Mhm.
Well, let's get in. And they understand this. They know what we do. They've seen the results of that. All right. Let's go to their corporate office and talk about, okay, how do we roll this out to your entire organization? Let's
Mhm.
say you have an ER solution, ER scheduling solution. Well, now you can say, all right, let's look at for all your groups. How does that help you out, and what does that bring to you? And how can we drive that? Okay, great. Now let me get Sue in here, because she's a sales rep, and she's gonna wrap this up in a bow for you. She's gonna make sure everything fits for you, and then we're gonna be back to make sure that you're getting this all in properly.
So I know we're getting short on time, but I want to get one more question in here. As if you were going to give another fractional one piece of advice, what would it be?
Wow, one piece of
Well, you can
advice.
only tell them one thing, right? And it's got to be helpful, obviously. Not don't do it. But reconsider. No. If you're give them,
You know
one
what you're
piece of
getting in for.
advice with the design on helping them grow their, whether it's a solopreneur or small team or large team. I'm just curious of what you would say.
Um, I would say when you're getting into it, really understand who you're serving, where you're serving them at.
Mm,
Okay. So like for me, I'm really because I'm going to smaller organizations, I'm really working at the C level.
hmm
Um, Not everyone works at the C level. In fact, even with my clients, I'll get with them there. We need to get to C level. I'm like, okay, who's your buyer? Well, really the VP of this will drive it. And like I said, with large organizations, VP levels will actually make good high decisions. I'm like, well, that's who you need to be targeting. You can go to C level all the time, but they're not going to talk to you because they're not handling that. So
hmm
find out where that is at. But really, I would say understand your customer very well and where you're bringing that value to them. Because when you know that, then the conversations get very easy because you're not sitting there and selling them something. You're having a conversation. What's your problem? What how do you I mean, most of them, I should say, some know what it's costing them to do that, but you have to be able to dig into that and say
hmm
what that is. In fact, I was funny because there's one time I was working with a group and the CEO is like, well, we got 92% customer retention. I'm like, really? I'm thinking, why are you talking to me then? Because
Right.
that,
Right. It's a
no,
good number.
you should be fine. And I come back in and look at, they only had 60%, but they were telling him that
Uh,
they were at 92%. I came back and said, nah, you're at 60% right now. That's why you're feeling the pain, So let's
yeah.
look at what we can do to change that. So it's understand that customer, what they're doing, so you can have that conversation of how do we solve this versus trying to sell them something and just, hey, we do this and we have these great widgets, they look like this and such like that.
hmm
Now I've had to add, you have to again make sure that you're working on your business the whole time too, because that's gets you from that feast and famine.
hmm
So have a slot for working your customers, but also working your business.
Love it. Tim, if people want to learn more about you, maybe they want to hire you or ask your advice, and I know you've got a lot of great content that you're putting out. How do they find you?
I'm at clientsuccessadvisors.com. They can come there. I'm on LinkedIn. Timothy Judson looks a little, better on paper, but I go by Tim. Either one they can get a hold of me at either one. I have a new book out. I have it online right now. They can look at that. It kind of tells you about what customer, I mean, kind of the conversation we had, what customer success is about, written at the executive level so they can understand what this is and what this can do for them. Soon to be on Amazon, so they can look it up there also. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So right now the book's on your website,
It's on my website right now and soon to be on Amazon.
and is on your website available for download only, or is there a hard copy they can buy from you as well?
It's download right now, but Amazon will have a hard copy.
Brilliant. Yeah, that KDP publishing there, that's a great way to go for self-publishing for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I think writing a book was easier than getting it published.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, you get it down, you get it right, and you're like, okay, great. And now it's like, I didn't realize there was that many steps to go from, all right, here I have a digital copy to, okay, how do I actually get it to them?
Yeah.
It's been an experience.
Yeah, it is. We've helped a couple of clients do it, and it's it is not without its challenges for sure.
Yeah.
But worth it in the end. So awesome. Well, hopefully if it gets up on Amazon soon, give us the link. We can attach that to the show. I'll make sure that Taylor puts the link to your website though in the show as well, so people can find that copy or find your website if they need it. And really appreciate you, Tim, for coming on and spending some time with our audience and talking about who you are and what you do and giving us a little bit of insight.
Yeah, I appreciate time coming talk with you and what you're doing. I appreciate this, helping out the industry, and talk with people about what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's the fractional community is growing, and we want to make sure that, we're a part of it, we're a voice in it, we're helping in any way that we can. And, I see a big future for fractionals for sure with all the market pressures that are happening right now. And to your point with the fact that we can jump on a Zoom or a Google chat, and get
Yeah,
a lot of work that way. So it's, we just want to be a part of it and support it any way we can. So appreciate you coming on.
great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And of course, everybody, thanks for listening. You can find this episode and all of our episodes at hourglasssaas.com. You can also check out our blog or sign up for our newsletter. Each week, we send out a curated list of content, not our content. It's things that we've found from around the internet, on LinkedIn, on websites that we think are helpful and valuable to other fractional operators and service firms. So check it out, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll hear from us next week, everybody. Thanks for listening.